Om Mani Padme Hum.
Whoa, 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 what up, y'all?
What up?
It's the Brooks and Banks show, yo.
That's right, the show where everything matters and
Nothing matters, Dom.
dang, flipped it on you.
That's right.
So, I like the attire.
Yeah. Well, you know, we just came back from the Buddhist temple.
Yes,
And,
Shilai Buddhist Temple in Hacienda Heights, close to the Los Angeles area. Huge Buddhist temple. Not to like get into like denominations or nothing like that, but I believe their denomination is from Taiwan, which is kind of generally more thought of as more like the more freer thinking, the non-communist Chinese people. So it's from a non-communist country, so it's not like as influenced by government.
That makes a lot of sense. And I got to say just that, like, you know, growing up as a Western white American, I've been to church, I've been to other religious, let's say more European religious temples and churches and
you're
stuff.
more used to like the Judaic stuff.
Yeah, you know, and boy, was this different.
Yeah.
There was no feeling of like anybody trying to convert me, anybody trying to get me to donate money, anybody trying to do anything really. I mean, they pretty much just left us alone and let us walk around and do whatever we wanted. And then, you know,
It's just a silly.
it seems so. It was rather refreshing. And I know I'm not a Buddhist. I didn't go there to worship the Buddha, or even to pray or anything like that. It was the first time I've ever been to a Buddhist temple, and it did feel a lot like going home. It was very just
It was a welcoming environment, but it wasn't like come in.
Yeah.
It was more just like, hey, we're open, welcome.
Yeah, and one of the guys came up to me and was like, "Hey, have you ever been here before?" And I said no, and he's like, "Okay, I'm a volunteer here."
Yeah.
And my only job here is basically to show you the map and tell you like where the gardens are and like where the statues are and stuff. And
Beautiful temple.
And here are some pamphlets if you're interested. And that was it.
Great temple. Is really pretty. I've been there a few times. They got lots of great artwork, and all the artwork. By the way, it's free to go.
Yeah.
But like it's almost like a museum in some ways. Though also
totally.
they got a lot of artwork, and the artwork, every single piece of artwork has a plaque or some sort of information that not only says what it is, but like some like history behind it, stuff like that.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, it's funny because I say I'm not a Buddhist, and like here I have, you know, many Buddhist iconography and symbolism here. But I also have Egyptian and, you know, earthly stuff. And, you know, I think that we just kind of want to talk a little bit about the Buddhist aspect today because, like, I love it. Again, I am not like a religious person, very spiritual, mystical. And I like to take what resonates from all these different philosophies and leave the rest.
Yeah.
Not leave the rest because it's not true, but just because it's not my truth and it's somebody else's truth.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I first started waking up, I was coming to a lot of these like understandings about the universe, just about the oneness of consciousness, and that I was, you know, I had a DMT experience, a psychedelic experience that put me in the oneness and helped me understand the oneness. So I use a lot of the same philosophy that Buddhists use, and I didn't even know that they are Buddhist. Yeah. It wasn't until I started kind of using my voice more and talking about these things, then people like you or other people would say, "Hey, that's like, that sounds Buddhist to me."
So in my Buddhist, we were talking about this earlier today. I've been around Buddhism a long time, and I was introduced to Buddhism mostly through martial arts, right? Because a lot of martial arts are like closely linked to it, and a lot of temples would absorb self-defense systems to either use for their monks or to teach to other people to defend themselves, not necessarily for fighting. Anyway, I've been around it for a long time, but I've always been a person that's reluctant to get into like ritualistic stuff or get too deeply involved in religious stuff as far as an organization.
Right, which is why Buddhism does probably feel really natural to you as well, because it doesn't get in so much into the mysticism.
Right. So I think to a lot of Westerners and a lot of Americans, the robes, the old temples, the tradition, how old it is, things like that, it's really easy for it to look foreign to a lot of us.
Yeah. Strange.
Silly, strange.
Yeah.
You know?
But mysterious even.
Mysterious,
Yeah.
yeah. But what's interesting is it's like actually considered by a lot of people, even a lot of scientists, to be like the most modern religion as far. And I even hesitate to say religion a lot. Buddhists will call it religions, some won't.
Yeah.
You said that you weren't Buddhist, but something that I thought that I wanted to bring up was that a lot of Buddhist texts and scriptures, sutras, and debaters say you don't need to proclaim to be a Buddhist to be one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't need to worry about worshiping any other religion and still practice Buddhism.
Yeah, and I think Hinduism harps on that a lot too. And so I think, but Hinduism does go into more of the mythological mysticisms. But yeah, just that, and so that here's what I found interesting is
which
that
Buddha didn't refute.
He
didn't refute the
spirits,
the gods and the spirits and the Vedas and the.
Yep.
He didn't refute it, but a lot of times when people would ask him about it, he would. First of all, he also thought that they were bound by a lot of the same karmic effects that humans were, and like life and death and rebirth. He also felt that they could be changed, like they could be like reversed. Like if it was a bad spirit or entity or God or whatever, it could be turned good and vice versa. And he also thought that meritorious deeds that are done by us could be transferred over to them.
To our ancestors
and ourselves and other living people,
other living. So
a lot of it has to do with intention.
And again,
we're going all over the place. But
he wasn't. So okay, I shouldn't say
he wasn't
but,
that far out in his philosophies. In fact, if you look at the way that most of the world around him was, and the teachings and the principles and the God worshiping and stuff, what he was preaching was actually quite minimalistic.
Yeah,
it was like all that's cool and that's great and I accept it. But it's not necessarily what my focus is on for helping people's suffering in this field of existence.
Helping to end suffering or accept suffering, whatever that might be.
And so ending the karmic cycle, breaking
I've often heard people say, like, if somebody asked Buddha something about like life after death, he would say something to the effect of if you're worried about that or thinking about that, then you still haven't figured out how to end suffering here, because you wouldn't care so much about that. It's very interesting.
A great parable is one that he supposedly told, which probably was a story that already existed at the time. That it was someone asking him about this cosmic time knowledge stuff, like these really, really deep questions about man's existence and why and where we come from.
How it began, these type of questions, right?
Yeah. And so it's said that Buddha told him a story that goes, once a man was shot by a poisoned arrow, and he was slowly being poisoned to death. And when people came to help him, he demanded to know who shot him and why. And by the time these men got the information that this man wanted, the man was dead. And you can take that however you want, but I take that as a parable of there's amazing stuff out there. There's amazing knowledge and amazing questions and amazing things that we are finding out. And people like you are helping certain people with organizing a lot of this in our brains.
We have a different connective consciousness now with the internet and things like that, where we have a heightened level of awareness to where we can compile this information like we weren't able to do in his time.
Yeah.
So but with that being said,
it still applies.
It still applies.
And so he was really just all about, that's all great, but I'm not really here to talk about it.
That wasn't his message. He was like, it sounds fun and all that, but like, or it can seem like I've got to know this. Once I know this, then I'll know. But it's the similar thing of like, anytime we are searching for something outside of us, we say, once I find it, then I will feel this certain way that I'm trying to feel. When it seems to be what they teach in Buddhism and a lot of what I've learned from other things is that it's not about changing something outside of you to make you feel a certain way. It's when you feel the certain way, then the thing outside of you will change.
Yeah. And dude, we're all guilty of the same things that we preach against. I mean, the things a lot of these religious books say, regardless of denomination, if everyone did what Jesus said, if everyone did what Buddha said,
Yeah.
if everyone did what Muhammad said,
Yeah.
even without any of the other one's existence and philosophies, the world would be fine.
Or even if we just did the good things that they said, even if there are some controversial things that they said, like if you just take what resonates and you leave the rest, then what a wonderful blueprint we have been given. Because again, Buddha is kind of more about how to end suffering with the self, that it starts and ends with me. Jesus can be said it's more about like forgiveness and these type of things.
Some could argue that the whole Son of Man thing was the whole like we are like Son of God, Son of Man thing is kind of like a parable of like
Sure,
and we are God, or like we are of God, or like we all have godliness in us, Christness in us, Christ-like abilities.
Sure, and then Buddhism, there's of course the metaphor versions of that. Yeah, exactly.
And Buddhism preaches a lot of stuff about like they don't believe that anyone's born inherently a sinner necessarily or a Buddha. They believe that we're all born a blank canvas.
It's an empty bubble of potential.
Yeah. Not necessarily born into the same circumstances. And
well, you know, the whole
realms.
concept of that everybody's born equal. What it really comes down to is that that we all come into this world with nothing, we all leave this world with nothing. So it's like, in a sense, like yes, we are all come into this equally.
Speaking of that, the coming in this world with nothing, leaving this world with nothing. And kind of relating this to, we wanted to do this to kind of, if you know stuff about Buddhism already and these other religions, then like great. If you're someone that's like kind of teetering on the fence and like knows some stuff, maybe like what you know is just presented to you through like yoga and like pop culture stuff, or you resonate with it because it looks peaceful and feels peaceful. That's kind of why we wanted to talk about this, because it's really not that crazy mystical. It's really pretty basic, in my opinion, just people over time, over centuries, in different cultures and in different education levels. It was codified and presented in all these different ways to get people in the mindset to remember the message, which is why you have the like 1,000 Buddha statues and big Buddha statues and like the trinkets and the posture, the bowing, the incense, the rituals, the chanting. I believe though comes from medicinal origins. Vibrational, medicinal origins.
And I want to say too, just like a quick, brief like story of Buddha, because some people might resonate with it.
And by the way, Buddha is not Fat Buddha, the fat laughing Buddha.
It's not.
That is
it's a bodhisattva, right?
It technically yes, but he's not really a known living thing.
So
he's
I've talked about
a
this
mythological perception Buddha.
So and let me just touch on this real quick too, because like, you know, when it comes to like statues, pictures of gods, Jesus, you know, Vishnu, Ganesh, any of these type of things, like
I'm not too familiar with that.
But like all of these things are essentially, in my opinion, you know, they are like kind of symbols to remind us of a certain thing.
Right.
And people turn it into worship, and, you know, to each his own. But that when I see a fat laughing Buddha, what it does to me is it reminds me to like relax my belly.
Yeah.
Smile and be happy.
And isn't it funny that he's associated with future?
Interesting. Yeah. And so it's
again, cultures where to be fat and happy like that was like, oh, this dude's balling. This dude's got it all. Abundance, happy. We look at that now as like maybe fat and lazy and happy and stoned.
Mm-hmm.
That's our relation now.
I literally think about how when I'm stressed, I like suck in my gut. I'm like, my eyebrows are down. Like, I'm kind of like, and then like when I see a smiling, laughing Buddha, I'm always like, oh yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And so with that being said, real quick story of Buddha from what is known, basically that he grew up basically well-to-do, like
Noble, probably.
some say
Prince.
noble, like
Yeah,
a
some
prince.
say,
Okay. And basically his mother, before he was born, had a vision. And in the vision, she saw an elephant with 6 tusks. And she went to all the local mystics and said, I had this vision. What does it mean? And they said, you're going to have a son, and he's either going to be a great religious like leader or a great spiritual leader, or he's going to be like a great king. And basically the story goes that when his father found out this, his mother died giving birth to him, first of all. Then his father knew about the what the mystic said about the vision, so he shunned him from society, basically kept him within the palace gates up until the age of like 20 or something. I don't know the exact age, but he had already had a kid, all these things, right? And then one day decided he wanted to go see what was outside the palace walls, and he went out with one of the guards. And basically, as he went outside the palace walls, he started noticing all these things, like poor people that he had never seen, people sick that he had never seen, people dying that he'd never seen. And he was like, what is all this? Oh my God, this is suffering. I never understood what this is. This is very interesting. And basically from that day, kind of like, decided, okay, I want to like learn more about this. So then he denounced all of his money and everything. And basically, make a long story short, he went out and practiced a bunch of different like spiritual things, like modalities, let's say.
And the climate in which he'd grown up, and the religious climate in which he had grown up was already vast and historical.
Yeah.
So there was
a lot of stuff. Yeah. There was a lot of knowledge there. So, I mean, okay, so he was like, all right, I'm seeing all this suffering and all this stuff, so I'm going to go out and I want to learn about all these different spiritual modalities. He did everything from like, fasting to meditating for long periods of time. I mean, like many different wild and strange mystical spiritual practices. And what he found is that these things could get him to a place of total bliss, but that he couldn't actually like stay there. And through trying to understand that, he basically discovered how to end suffering, and how to stay in that like blissful state. And the way to do it is to accept it, essentially.
Yeah, and that's where things do get argumentative. The philosophy of enlightenment and all these other things. My key takeaway from Buddhism: self-reflection, stoicism. It's proven for me to be a medicine.
Yeah, bro.
So, again, I've been around Buddhism my whole life. Haven't gotten deep into it as far as in organizations. I've steered away from it and gotten into a lot of other stuff. And then just recently in my personal life, everything just got better. Not because of on paper everything got better, right?
Yeah.
I got a better paying job. Everything was lined up for me to be less stressed.
Right.
Like I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be less stressed, and I was having all these physical manifestations of stress happening simultaneously.
What do you mean physical manifestations of stress?
I was having like reoccurring like skin rash issue things.
Joint pain.
Super crazy joint pains. I was getting really nauseous.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that, yeah.
And just all these hair loss. I had like alopecia on my face. That's why I'm like growing my facial hair back in now, because I just shaved it all off because I was like losing like patches of it. And I was like, what is going on right now where I am stressed out? It's showing physical signs of stress, but I'm not stressed out. And like everything should be good, but there's physical signs coming outward, out of me. And you mentioned like it sounds like because you're like purging.
I told you it's because you're basically jumping a bunch of timelines. And you're basically getting you're getting like motion sickness, if you will.
Which Buddha didn't refute.
Yeah, no.
Timelines.
But regardless of that, like I've understood since I had my awakening that there are deep emotional roots to every
Yes.
physical ailment. Even if you trip and fall, there's an emotional root to like, where was your mind and why weren't you paying attention and all these kind of things. But everything from a pimple, a sprain, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like a boil, a cancer, all these things there's emotional ties. And even though Western medicine doesn't necessarily, they do agree that stress causes manifests
that's
these
what I was
type
gonna
of
say.
things.
So they agree that stress manifests these types of harmful chemicals, and that there can be physical reactions that your body is showing from stress on just a physical level. What they're not able to do is to tell you why.
Yeah, of course.
And what they're not able to do is fix that problem for you.
Get to the root of it.
Western medicine is really good at once something has already happened. Now, how do we stop it from getting worse? And they're not that good at making it go away altogether.
It's an external, like like, you know, if you have something that can be surgically removed or have an external, metabolic,
let's kill the cancer.
Kill it, or
let's cut this out. Let's give you a medicine that
add
changes
something,
the chemical,
or go in and take something
and it's great.
away.
It's amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. We need it.
The Eastern medicine stuff, and I think because it is more rooted in some of these older, organized philosophy religions that were paired with medical practices that existed for a long time, because Buddha did study medicine as well.
Yeah.
They figured out these things: meditation, sound. The chanting is sound, baby.
Yeah.
It's not just to remind you of things mentally, but
there's a vibrational thing happening.
But pure thinking, positive thinking,
creative expression
need to be important and practiced.
It's a mind, body, soul balance is what we're trying to achieve. And that if there's they even talk about in Buddhism that if there's too much happiness, that it can even manifest as a negative,
and negative physical things,
physical
excitement.
ailment.
That's another thing I was going through. I was having a lot of chest pains and things like that.
Right. Because you had a lot. So you were having big swings.
I had huge swings in my life that just happened.
It just happened, right?
Recently. All good,
but it was a big swing.
Yeah. So this was all happening at the same time where I'm like training hardcore in Kung Fu right now. I'm working on a bunch of lesson plans and stuff that I'm putting out. And that was getting me closer again. And we're doing this podcast stuff, and we always talk. We work together, and we talk every day about a lot of introspective things. So I was getting back into, again, reading a lot about this stuff again, and training with these closely linked things. And at the same time, we went to the temple.
Yeah.
So we go to the temple, and I already knew, like, I need to go. I need, like, not just like just because it's just a non-stressful environment. It's pretty. It's open and air and plants and stuff that I resonate with already. Right.
Yeah, we can dress up a little bit or not, whatever you want. Yeah.
They have free books there.
Yeah.
And one of them was like health with Buddhism, and just reading these things, it was like spitting it right back at me. The mirror of it was like, these are deep rooted issues that you're holding in, and that I've been holding in, and now I need to not just bury them away with like hardening myself.
You need to find healthy ways of
I
expressing
need to
them.
find a healthy way of expressing it and like letting it out.
Yes.
And I basically like knew after like reading all this, like what they're just like internal like issues that I've been holding on to, things that I'm upset with certain people, like relationships and past and family members, and just certain blockages that I was that I thought I was dealing with, but I think I was just coping with.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a tough thing to.
Hold on. And what the Buddhist teaching tells you is that's all very real, and that's all there, and that's very okay, and that's what everyone goes through, and like that's part of the suffering, and you will heal by doing good, by thinking positively, by helping others, by taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. And it does have amazing effects. What I consider to be like at the beginning, at the source, like inside of you,
Yeah.
to not make these things bother you so much.
Well, and that's it's once you become aware, it's a double-edged sword, right? So the
is.
more aware you become, it's a beautiful, amazing, synchronistic life. It seems like life is like a beautiful, set of synchronicities that are just perfect, and like that's the good part of it. The bad part of it is you're aware all of a sudden. So it's kind of like in the Garden of Eden. Like when they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the knowledge of good and evil. It's like once you know, you have to know both type of a thing, right? So with that heightened awareness, is your body's going to start kind of like telling you now, okay, we got to start working out. We got to start eating better. We got to start doing these things. And when you sweep it under the rug, the pile gets very big. It doesn't go anywhere. You push something away, it doesn't go anywhere. And so I think that, even things like screaming and like doing ayahuasca where you throw up all the anger and things weird like that, or of course, like, we don't want to just jump to psychedelics, even though it can be a very good way to kind of purge you of things. But, man, there's so many good ways to take, your body is constantly telling you what it is that you need to work on. Always. But yeah, man, and I just love that.
It can be confusing
it's very confusing.
Like I think again, a lot of us Westerners, science, logic, we want like a clear, lineated answer to a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, what's interesting though is that we have a dual thing though, where we say, I want a clear, logical answer to this. And then Buddhism will say something like, okay, well, like excitement isn't good for the heart, and anxiety isn't good for the lungs. And we'll go, that's bullshit.
Just try it.
So I don't view Buddhism as a religion, so I'm not here to convert anybody. But I wanted to do this. We wanted to do this to show a glimpse to some people. I know we've talked about before in the past, but when you look, there's so much information out there, and there's plenty of people that'll say, well, real Buddhists won't do this, and real Buddhists won't do that. Dude, there's so many people that are going to tell you, like, dude, real Buddhism is you.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter, back to like the beginning of what we're talking about with it throwing people off and the robes and all that stuff like that. It's like, that's what people wore at the time when he was around.
Yeah.
So if Buddha was alive today, Siddhartha Buddha was born today, you know what he would have done? He would have done the same thing then. And that was, they decided, okay, the robe, the clothes should be discarded rags or clothing that you put together and you put on and make you have like no attachment to it. And then you cleanse it or whatever. That turned into a ritualistic thing.
Sure.
Then it got brought over to other countries. These are the Chinese style.
Yeah.
So
and it's kind of like the whole teaching of Buddhism too is like when you try to
so is Buddha going to tell those people in China, like, real Buddhists
that's what
wouldn't
I'm saying.
wear that and be vain,
but
and
it's
wear
like,
it in the Chinese
it's
style,
so similar to like the whole argument of like, you're asking me what the source of something is when it's this everything is a source of everything.
Yeah.
It's like you're looking for this cause and effectal chain, but it's like if I get in a car accident and it was because somebody cut me off, is it my fault for not reacting in time for her cutting me off? Or is it the person who she just got in a fight with, which is the reason why she was flustered, which is why she cut me off? Or is it because the dog peed on the bed, which is what got her boyfriend mad, which is why he called her, which is why she cut me off, which is why I hit her? Where is the source?
Or what about you get in a car accident and you go to the hospital and you go to the doctor and you say, hey, what's the meaning of life? And hey, when did the universe start? Hey, why did my wife leave me? And you're a doctor, you're smart. And then like, oh, that's bullshit. He doesn't know anything. It's just You get that a lot on social media.
I get it all the time.
That's why I hesitate even doing this stuff and talking about a lot of this stuff. But I finally got into a comfortable place with myself, and I finally have seen enough like-minded people out there who are into this stuff that really make me not afraid.
Yeah.
And that are really like, there's just nothing to be afraid of. But I think a lot of us are dealing with trauma too, because we grew up in this very religious war synchronicity thing, where it's like religious wars and like
a repeating cycle.
And like we can't mix these religions, and these religions are enemies, and like this is bullshit, and like. I mean, we've talked about this before, but if you really think about it, most people in this country consider themselves super free thinking, but also align themselves with a totally mystical tale.
Yeah. I saw a meme one time that was like, religion is basically like all the adults arguing over which of their imaginary friends are real. And I thought that's kind of it's funny. It's funny.
We're tribal.
Yeah,
We're
and I just
nature.
I mean, I just think that we're at the point now where we have such our collective consciousness is so connected right now through the internet. We all have access to so much more information than we ever had before. It used to be to where if you wanted to be spiritual and you lived in a certain area, there weren't that many options.
Yeah,
so you had to
do it.
Yeah, or you did it all by yourself and you were a weirdo in the forest, right? Which
you can see why a lot of this stuff became what it was.
Right. So
these guys were like, you know what?
I'm gonna go be a weird wizard and have my cats and my crows, and I don't care if you guys, and that's what we talk about that all the time. And then like these are the people then that a Shaolin monk will be like, hey, did you hear about this guy like in the forest? Like he studies this thing, and like send his students there. Hey, go learn from him. You don't have to like take everything, but just take what resonates and leave the rest. Yeah, he's a weird wizard. But he can teach you some crazy stuff. But again, so the options were go off on your own or find like-minded people like you, and basically, then you start a freaking religion. That's what happens, right? Or you join a current religion. But nowadays, we have so much access, which is, for me personally, why I love learning. Now that I have these universal truths of my own that I understand about like certain symbolisms, what colors represent, what animals symbolize, divine masculine and feminine energy, just kind of like basic divine understandings of things. From there, then I can peek into all these different philosophies, whether it's theoretical physics or Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, shamanism, Hermeticism. It doesn't matter. I can peek into it and be like, oh, okay, they had it. They had it on this part. They didn't have it on this part. And when I'm saying they don't have it on this part, I'm not saying that part isn't true. It just doesn't fit what resonates with me.
Isn't that what Buddha did?
That exactly. And that's really what all the prophets did.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about this.
And I'm not saying
too.
I'm a prophet. I'm just.
I've read in a lot of Freemasonry literature that a lot of them believe that Jesus was sent off to many different teachers.
Yeah.
And there's a story
the
about
gap
an
of his
Egyptian
age.
mystic named Ormus who was taught him a lot of stuff. So and we'll wrap this up soon, but it's interesting though, like if we put in a nutshell, what religions have come out since Buddha and Christ's time? Not really that many, right? Not that many like major
Islam
religions.
Yeah,
we've got Islam.
Well, and like Church of Latter-day Saints and like
right offshoots of like the same like story message.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of these, all three of them, like Buddha, Muhammad, and Jesus, it sounds like each of them went through a bunch of stuff learned a bunch of stuff, and they're like, here's what I've deduced. Here's what I've chipped away at.
Mm-hmm.
And
then people wrote it down, and then wrote it down, and then wrote it down, and then hundreds of years later put together,
expanded,
and so that's where it gets tough.
It's extremely tough
because and that's when we say it's like, that's what I mean is take what resonates and leave the rest.
That's what I was getting.
And that they
sounds like these guys did the same thing.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're all. What a beautiful thing that they're all kind of teaching us a slightly different aspect.
And this has also always been weird to me that all three of them preached things that were pretty mind-blowing and like changed a lot of people and a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And their concepts, to me at least, and I think most people are not that crazy. They're not that like
they are when you don't have access to a lot of information.
Yeah.
Then they are mind-blowing. But when you have access to all the information, it actually like perfectly unfolds and makes sense.
Like Buddha came from a world with like all this crazy stuff going on, and he was just like, really we should just like focus on ourselves and like do no harm. Jesus grows up in this time where all this crazy stuff's going on, and he's like, maybe we shouldn't just be like paying all these money to these people who are just like using all this stuff to like not really make anything better for any of us. And like, you actually all have
divinity
inside all of you.
Mm-hmm. Whoa, what a freak! I know, but it's still a crazy concept today.
Yeah,
it is for a lot of people.
And regardless of your belief in any of it or not, to me, I argue like, look how far we've come,
mm-hmm.
and look how far we've regressed.
Mm.
And regardless of the reason why, and the powers that be, and dark ages, and this and that, or whatever.
Well, I just think that the natural progression of this universe is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Yeah. It's like this constant kind of like expanding, contracting, in and out kind of a thing. But that there's always room for more growth, which is why it's 2 forward, 1 back, 2 forward, 1 back. Even it feels like really crazy sometimes. It feels like you're just going like this, but really you're going,
And the last thing like that I'll say, as far as like Buddhism not scaring people, it doesn't tell you like you can't. It doesn't tell you can't really do anything. If there's things that like they're not on the whole from the perspective of Siddhartha Buddha,
mm-hmm.
not like an organization. It's like, this may not be the best way to do something if you're trying to have the best karma or what have you, or like, this way of thinking is kind of unacceptable to the Buddhist way of thinking.
Right.
Not
this is the right way, and if you do it the other way, you're an idiot or you're wrong.
Or you're an infidel.
Yeah, or a sinner or yeah.
And not, we need to change the world and turn it Buddhist.
Mm-hmm.
And not, you must worship the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
And not, you can't worship the Buddha and other things. It's not even you should worship the Buddha.
It's literally it's literally like, just a symbol to remind you of the teachings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be just like with anything else, though. You got to do your own research, and you got to go with what you resonate with, and don't. There's plenty of Buddhist temples that you're going to go to, and you're going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's going to be like weird. A lot of it has to do with like, culture and stuff like that also.
Yeah, but ultimately, like what I like, it's their complete understanding of the total connectiveness of the universe
mm-hmm.
that I really love.
Yeah.
And
a lot of East Asian Buddhism does have a lot of Taoism that came before Buddhism that was mixed into it, because Buddha, it was really big on like, hey, when this is spread, it should be kind of custom fit and done with care for the local
mm-hmm. culture
of where you go.
Right.
Don't try to impose your culture onto them.
Which
is why you got so many flares and different types of Buddhism.
Sure.
And
so and one other thing that I want to touch on before we close out here too is just like a basic understanding of how Buddhists deal with like the everyday suffering, which,
Okay.
and so like, in a perfect example that I use a lot with people is, people that you have these things that happen in your life and you're like, oh, I can't, like, I don't like this. Um, I can't take it anymore. The I can't take it anymore is like the suffering part, right? And let me put it in terms like this. We live in Los Angeles. There is traffic in Los Angeles. Sometimes rush hour traffic is really bad. However, I don't sit in traffic cursing out the traffic. Some people do. Some people do. They're mad at the traffic, even though it's just the traffic being traffic. Like, it's LA. It's traffic. So accept it.
Right.
So accepting it for what it is, and I go, yeah, it's just traffic being traffic. It just is. I don't have to be mad at it. It's kind of silly when you realize, like,
Yeah, it's and even physical suffering, to a young person, my son's not even 5 yet. When he's going through like growing pains or like certain things and uncomfortable situations, like physically, it hurts him and he's freaked out by it. And like to someone that's older, it's like almost like laughable.
yeah,
Like if you're a kid by yourself and like lost a tooth or something like
Yeah.
that, you'd be like, freaked out by it.
Totally.
Or like, the suffering is a lot of times mental.
and it comes down also to like worry and things
Yeah.
like that, which we've talked about before. That like that worrying is like worshiping the problem,
Yeah.
and that no amount of worry has any effect on the outcome.
Yeah.
And these are all Buddhist type philosophies.
And there's different types of suffering, and heaven and hell in a lot of Buddhist thought is not necessarily a physical place that's for just the afterlife for eternity. They view that as not logical to the Buddhist mind, because nothing is forever. Everything always changes, and no one's state can be in eternity in
Yes.
some one realm.
Right. Because they also believe that the self is an illusion, that we are an evolution of the universe. So when did you come into existence? Did you come into existence when your mom and dad met, when your mom gave birth to you, or when the Big Bang happened? When? Like, there's really there's no self.
Which is what leaves people with the question
Yes,
why.
the why. It's a big why.
Our brains are computers, man.
Yeah.
It's going to constantly do that. But again, to leave you with something, if nothing else, a gem that I'll leave you guys with is the meditation. It's tough when people say try to focus on nothing, but you're never going to really get it. But it's a really good practice to do. It's shown that it makes you not worry about the future so much. You're more optimistic, for lack of better terms.
And like, yeah, and it creates separation between your consciousness and the reality that you experience, so you don't have knee-jerk reactions to things that happen into your life.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, if you got something that you're stressed out about or worrying about, Buddha famously said something to the effect of like, your problem isn't the problem. Your problem is your inability to accept the problem. And so I did this the other day with Brooks when he was stressed out about something. And I said, just imagine that like a portal opens up and like the like 70, 80-year-old version of you, like that knows how everything's going to work out, is that like he just steps out and like everything's okay and like everything's going to work out okay. Like pretend you're that wiser version of you. And immediately you're like, oh yeah, I have nothing to worry about.
Yeah. We really don't, man. So especially if we all focus on taking care of ourselves, being positive, being merciful, helping others,
Love yourself, self-care, discipline, and
do meritorious acts, and you can transfer that merit over.
Yeah.
So, hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope if there's anything that you resonated with, take it. It's yours. I got nothing to sell.
If not, leave it for someone else. Don't be greedy.
Yeah.
Take what resonates and leave the rest.
Nothing to sell here, nothing to convert, nothing to see here. But I hope you guys enjoy it, and flip the script on you guys a little bit this time.
Yeah.
And if you guys got anything interesting that you want us to talk about for the next one, hit us up. I am on my Instagram at Kung Fu Brooks.
I am at OptiMystic Banks.
And this is the Brooks and Banks Show.
The show where everything matters and
nothing matters.
that's right, baby. We love y'all.
Love you guys.
Be good.
Be good.
Peace.
Peace.